Hello, I am Jake Collins, and this is the sixth in a short series of commentaries I'm doing on He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This is the final commentary I'm going to be doing on the original 1983 series from the episode Not So Blind, which I've mentioned before as an episode that I remembered quite well from when I saw it as a very young viewer, 4, 5 or 6 years old. I could have given you a pretty decent summary of what happened in the episode and the themes of the episode, because I found it very striking at the time, and that just goes to show how He-Man Filmation were never afraid to tackle the big important issues of the world head on and fight for equality and understanding between everyone, instill that sort of thing in their young viewers. And obviously I for one found this episode very memorable, and I'm sure many others did too. It's one of the episodes that shows that He-Man doesn't always need villains. The characters are so strong and you can do very interesting things with them that they don't always need to be fighting evil. They can be doing other things and learning other lessons, as indeed is happening here. The scene at the beginning with the storyteller, I've read, is deliberately designed to answer some of the questions that young viewers had about, well, why doesn't He-Man go to Snake Mountain and beat Skeletor up? When I do something wrong, I get punished. Skeletor always gets away with it, which is a valid question for young viewers to be asking. The storyteller begins here with a story about He-Man fighting rock monsters, and he spells out for us, now because the monsters were only big rocks, He-Man wasn't worried about hurting them, so he could punch them and kick them and destroy them all he wanted. That's setting that point out very clearly. And Adam says, when he joins in this little conversation in a moment, He-Man never wants to hurt any living thing. But rock monsters, and as I've been discussing before, robots, obviously don't count as living things. He-Man has a very definite, very narrow, very biological definition of what a living thing is. But yeah, these questions, why doesn't He-Man go and beat up Skeletor, and the one boy at the front still isn't satisfied after Adam's explanation. I still think He-Man should go and beat him up. And, well, perhaps he's right, but Adam attempts to explain here, well, He-Man doesn't actively go looking for trouble, but he stops Skeletor when Skeletor's being evil, and every day we come closer to bringing Skeletor down for good. I mean, that's just nonsense, isn't it? It would interfere with the status quo of the show. Adam says the punishment for Skeletor is only delayed, and it'll be worse when we do capture him. I mean, you know that's never going to happen. But as an explanation, as a reason for He-Man not actively looking for trouble, upholding truth and justice in that way, it works well enough, I think, for this particular series. But where it doesn't really wash as an excuse, I think, is in the She-Ra series. You can't say that She-Ra and the Great Rebellion don't actively go looking for trouble with Hordak. The whole point of the thing is that they're supposed to be striving to free Etheria from the evil Horde, but they're not really striving at all. They're just kind of hanging out in the Whispering Woods and not really doing that much about it. That's one aspect of She-Ra that really doesn't stand up to scrutiny, and there are others, and that's why I don't think it's as good as He-Man in any way at all, really. Really, what should be happening is She-Ra and all her allies, and He-Man and all the goodies from Eternia, should be doing everything they can to get the Horde off Etheria, but they don't. They have a very long, very unmoving status quo. So there we go. A couple of points there that this opening scene makes me think about, but of course we're in now to the conversation between Adam and Luce, The blind boy in this episode, his parents obviously hate him for being born blind. That's why they've called him Luz. Strange name. And Adam makes the mistake there of thinking, well, how can you take me home? You're blind. You don't know how to get back to your own home. Yes, I do, says Luz. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I'm helpless. Adam's learned a lesson there, and perhaps we viewers would as well. And, back then, 30 years ago and more, perhaps young viewers would have been surprised, enlightened by Luz saying that to Adam. Filmation paving the way here for a better world involving all of us. Luz has an interesting conversation with Ram Man about feeling faces and where's your neck, Ram Man? While Adam goes off and turns into He-Man. Good use of Ram Man in this episode. I always, of course, remembered him as the other companion on the adventure. He certainly plays a strong and striking part in the episode. Shouldn't Luz really be able to tell that Adam and He-Man are the same person, with all his heightened senses? Adam goes off, and then 2 seconds later He-Man comes back in and says, hey, I hear there's a blind boy wanting to go on an adventure with me. I think Luz should get it, but no, he can't for the whole thing. And He-Man, of course, there gets Luz to caress his pecs and arm, because that's how Luz sees, and it's obviously how He-Man gets his cheap thrills as well. He-Man says for their adventure they're going to experience the singing crystals. He says to Luz here, how would you like to be the only boy on Eternia to touch the singing crystals? You want to watch out, Luz, when strange men make suggestions like that to you. But okay, it's He-Man, so nothing's going to come of the situation that's anywhere near untoward. Really, the bulk of this episode is a 2 voice actor piece with John Irwin and Erica Scheimer. Obviously, John Irwin as He-Man and Ram-Man, and Erica Scheimer as Luz. Linda Gary isn't in this episode. You get a little bit of Alan Oppenheimer playing the storyteller and the merchant at the beginning, and a brief appearance from Man-at-Arms, and then the storyteller again at the end. And Lou Scheimer plays the attack track, who has a couple of lines, but mainly, as I say, it's John Irwin and Erica Scheimer carrying the episode as a kind of double act, and I think they do a very good job. As I've mentioned before, Erica Scheimer and her boy voices are a very good aspect of He-Man and sometimes She-Ra, although she does more female characters on She-Ra, regular female characters. And I don't say she does a bad job at that either. And Bravestar as well, you can hear Erica Scheimer's boy voices quite a lot. And they are very good. She's perhaps not as accomplished a voice actress as Linda Gary in terms of performance, but in terms of the voices she does and the truth she puts into them, I think she does an excellent job, particularly, as I say, with these young boy characters. Luz isn't Erica Scheimer's best boy voice. He's actually a bit sort of grating and shrill and gets rather annoying after a while. I think Erica's best boy voice is something like the one she uses for Prince Jeremy in The Royal Cousin, a season 1 episode. And she was using something very similar to that voice earlier in this episode for the boy who was insistent that He-Man should go to Snake Mountain and beat up Skeletor. I suppose it's kind of a confrontational, a bit sort of bratty boy voice, but I think that one's very convincing and very good. But they're all very good in their own way. The trouble with Linda Gary doing boy voices, like most voice actresses, is they do sound like a woman pretending to be a boy, and I don't think Erica Scheimer does sound like a woman pretending to be a boy. She sounds as genuine as you can get without getting an actual boy. Linda Gary, too, at times, I think is a bit too accomplished with her boy voice performances. when she's doing Stanlon, the archaeological apprentice, and she's going, "You're really He-Man? Oh boy," and things like that. It's a very obvious piece of acting, whereas Erica, as I say, I think puts more truth into the roles that she plays, the child roles that she plays, which makes a lot of sense because she was quite a bit younger than Linda Gary and coming at it from a different standpoint. So yeah, that's why I think Erica Scheimer works best for the kids, particularly the boys. I was thinking of saying that Linda Gary's boy voices sound pretty much exactly like Teela. When I was watching The Rainbow Warrior recently for a commentary, I realised Linda Gary's boy voices sound very like Teela eating. When Teela's got her mouth full at the picnic and is saying a line, that's Linda Gary's boy voice. But here's the bit anyway. They're all blind now, and I did find this very striking and very memorable. The trouble with the singing crystals, of course, is that when they sing, bits fall off them and explode and create a blinding flash. I expect I would have found this quite scary when I was little, really. If you can go into a cave and suddenly you're blind. Ooh, I hope that doesn't happen to me. That was the main sort of feeling I would have taken away from the episode. What I didn't realise at the time, of course, is that it's only temporary blindness for He-Man and Ram-Man. The bit at the end with Man-at-Arms and his eye examination. I remember thinking that that was some sort of magical sight-restoring device that Man-at-Arms had, but no. It's supposed to be just an eye examination, and Man-at-Arms is saying, "Oh yes, the damage is only superficial. Stay away from bright lights for a time and everything will be alright." But there we go. As I say, very memorable, this bit. And perhaps He-Man still hadn't learned his lesson when they were crossing this bridge the first time, wanting to carry Luz across. "Are you going to carry Ram-Man?" Well, no. I think he might well have wanted to carry any child across this bridge, not just because Luz was blind. Perhaps Luz is a bit oversensitive at times. But here we go, he's really coming through, using his skills, his height and other senses to lead the way back to the attack track. And of course the trouble with bridges like this, and they used to scare me on cartoons quite a lot, and I thought, God, I hope I never have to go on one of those, is it collapses here. Bridges like this always collapse. And I remember being quite struck by that while watching The Mysterious Cities of Gold as well, and you do see it on many cartoons. You have a bridge like this, it collapses. But here, of course, He-Man and Ram-Man have to join in and start using their other senses to help get out of this situation. And here, I suppose, really, they're using touch. They're describing where they are on the bridge and how they're going to reach each other. I'm on this side here, I'm going to throw this up, I'll catch the tree. It's a striking scene, quite a protracted scene, a scene with these three characters hanging off a bridge, talking to each other and doing stuff with their sense of touch. And it's well done. It's not He-Man fighting bad guys, it's He-Man doing something interesting and relevant and striking. I was thinking while watching this just now, well, it really is only the sense of touch they're using here. Are they going to show us how any of the other senses are equally as useful as sight in their own way? And they did when we finally get back to the top of the bridge, the other side of the bridge as it used to be. We have Luz pointing out a couple of landmarks using the other senses. There should be a beehive near here. "Ah, yes," says He-Man, "I can hear the bees." And Luz smells the flowers that he recognised, meaning that it was the place where they turned out of the first cave. So yeah, that all comes across very well. And as I say, at the time this would have been quite groundbreaking and revealing. You didn't really get representation of, how would you want to say it, disabled characters or whatever term is in vogue at the time. Differently abled was one. And yeah, this was helping to pave the way for representation on television. And of course, like all He-Man and its morals and lessons, it's a bit in your face. I'm blind, that doesn't mean I'm helpless. They like to spell it all out for us to make sure it's understood. But it's not too bad. I don't find it too cloying in this particular episode. And I do remember it being quite exciting, enthralling. How are they going to get back to the attack track now that they're all blind? Well, this is how. Teamwork and using all their other senses. And it's a good job they do as well. And the fates are against them, aren't they? I mean, the bridge collapsing there, and we discover just before we get back to the attack track there's been a cave-in as well. So yeah, high stakes stuff, really, even though it's not fighting evil as such. It's using skills and heroism to get out of a situation. And as I say, striking, memorable, and effectively done. I quite like the conversation that the three of them have in this cave here while He-Man's working out which bit is the cave-in. Ram-Man asks Luce what's the worst part about being blind. And he's like, well, I've never been able to see, so I don't miss seeing. But I don't like it when people treat me differently. Which indeed Adam / He-Man was doing. Such an insensitive git he is. And this leads on to Ram-Man doing a bit of thinking. Hey, yeah, sometimes people treat me differently because they think I'm stupid. And that's not a nice feeling. And as Ram-Man points out here, he's not stupid, he's just kind of slow. And as Luce says, a bit clumsy, and Ram-Man says, no, I'm not a bit clumsy, I'm very clumsy. And they all laugh. That's effectively done. Shows there are lots of different ways that we're all differently abled from each other. And certainly will be getting its young audience thinking. And remembering. Well, it certainly did me. And of course, we have to spell it out again in the moral segment at the end, where the children say they've learned that they shouldn't treat Luce differently because he's blind. Blind people have feelings and want to do stuff just like the rest of us normal people. They don't actually use that term, normal, because that would have been a bit dodgy even then, but that's what they mean. Perhaps they would phrase it slightly differently nowadays, not say they want to do things and enjoy stuff like the rest of us. But you know, as I say, for the time, it's trailblazing. And it quite quickly comes to a conclusion here, because of course they're back at the attack track, and the attack track knows the way back to the palace, and that's consistent with what we've seen and heard of the attack track before. I quite like the attack track as a character. Interestingly, of course, it's in on the whole He-Man secret, at least in one episode. A couple of people who aren't in the list of people who are in on the secret that actually are in on the secret, as well as the Sorceress, Man-at-Arms, and Orko. Queen Marlena, as we know, the attack track, and Zodak. He's some sort of celestial being, I suppose, so he knows these things. But there we are. We get that very brief appearance from Man-at-Arms. Don't worry, it was only temporary, everything's going to be fine. Thank you, Duncan. Phew, we can get back to our status quo. And they're a bit bratty, all these children. Erica Scheimer doing various different brat voices. They don't believe Luce at first, and of course He-Man has to turn up and say, hi, buddy, can I call on you again if I need your help? A bit patronising from you there, He-Man, but it gets the job done. So yeah, as I say, an effective and memorable episode. And I could have done you a summary from when I was little. It was pretty much the same as I remembered when I saw it again on DVD 20 years later. And yes, I do like it. It is one of my favourites. And I guess that's why I've done this commentary on it. Like with Queen Marlena and Teela having a conversation together as the moral in The Rainbow Warrior, this moral we come in with Adam and the storyteller and the children again, and they don't address us directly, but they discuss what we have learned, and even this slightly brassy boy at the front who wants He-Man to go and beat up Skeletor, whatever He-Man's moral feelings might be, has learned a valuable lesson and learned to appreciate Luce and indeed all people who are differently able from him. So that's good, isn't it? What does Adam say at the end here? You might learn as much from the disabled as they learn from you. Probably, Adam, you're right about that. There's an end to this episode commentary, and with it, my commentaries on the original He-Man series. So hopefully you'll join me again next time for the first of two commentaries on the newer 2002 He-Man series on the episode Lessons.